Today, we're diving into a heated debate in Ranger City. The focus, Agenda Item 10, which proposes a possible loan from the REDC B board to the city for purchasing an excavator and related equipment. This item, as presented, has sparked significant concern among residents and legal observers. The main issue is that the agenda is vague, leaving the public with more questions than answers. Why is this purchase necessary? What are the loan terms? And is this process even lawful? Let's break down the key points and see why this seemingly routine equipment purchase is causing such a stir. The Texas Open Meetings Act is clear. The public must be given meaningful notice about what's being discussed. In this case, the agenda item simply asks the city and public to consider a loan, but fails to mention the loan amount, interest rate, repayment plan, or even the specific project. This lack of detail makes it impossible for citizens to understand what's at stake or to provide informed input. When public money is involved, transparency isn't just a courtesy, it's the law. The more significant the issue, the more specific the notice must be. Under the Development Corporation Act, Type B corporations like REDC B can only spend money on authorized projects, not just general city operations. Projects must be clearly defined and documented. In this case, the agenda refers vaguely to equipment for streets, roads, and drainage, but doesn't specify a project name, scope, or location. Without these details, the proposal doesn't meet the legal requirements for a valid project. This isn't just a technicality. It's about ensuring public funds are used for clear, community-approved purposes. Type B projects are subject to strict safeguards, including public notice, the right to petition, and often a public hearing before any money is spent. In this case, there's no project description, no findings, no published notice, and no record of a hearing. Without these steps, the public is left in the dark, and the city risks violating state law. These safeguards exist to protect taxpayers and ensure that major financial decisions aren't made behind closed doors. The Development Corporation Act does allow certain loans, but only if they finance a qualifying project. The law is clear. REDC B cannot act as a general bank for the city. Any loan must be tied to a specific defined project that benefits the corporation, and by extension, the community. A vague loan for equipment, with no performance metrics or project definition, doesn't meet this standard. This raises serious questions about whether the proposed loan is even legal. State law requires a clear paper trail for deals like this. That means a defined project name and location, a draft loan agreement with all the details, a repayment plan, and evidence of compliance with public notice and hearing requirements. In this case, none of that documentation appears to exist. Without it, the city and REDC B are not meeting their legal obligations, and the public can't properly evaluate the proposal or its risks. The city of Ranger is already facing significant debt, including a $1 million obligation and a gap between revenues and expenditures. Taking on new debt without a clear repayment source is risky and could hurt the city's ability to secure grants in the future. Even if the loan terms are favorable, it's still a real obligation that needs careful consideration. The public deserves to know the full financial impact before any commitments are made. One of the most troubling aspects is the lack of justification for buying new equipment. The city reportedly already owns several mini-excavators. There's no data on how often current equipment is used, what it costs to maintain, or whether renting would be more cost-effective. There's also no list of projects the new excavator would tackle. Without this information, it's impossible to know if the purchase is necessary or a wise use of public funds. There are also concerns about possible conflicts of interest. With recent development activity near the airfield and homeowners association, some worry that the equipment purchase could benefit private interests rather than the public. If that's the case, it must be disclosed and analyzed under the rules governing economic development corporations. Transparency is key to maintaining public trust. To address these issues, the recommendation is clear. Pull or postpone the agenda item until it can be properly defined and documented. This means specifying the project's name, scope, and location, outlining the loan terms and repayment source, and providing all required public notices and hearings. Only then can the city and REDC B ensure they're acting within the law and in the public's best interest. Another key request is a thorough cost-benefit analysis. This should compare the costs of buying versus renting equipment, evaluate staffing and operator capacity, and review current fleet utilization. Without this analysis, it's impossible to determine if the proposed purchase is the best option for the city. Making informed decisions requires solid data and careful planning. Economic development corporations are subject to open meetings and public information laws. This means all backup materials, such as meeting minutes and supporting documents, must be made available to the public. These requirements ensure that citizens can follow the decision-making process and hold officials accountable. In this case, The lack of documentation raises red flags about transparency and compliance. The absence of January financials in the director's packet is another concern. When making financial decisions, it's essential to have the most up-to-date information. Without current financials, the City Commission risks making commitments without understanding the full fiscal picture. This lack of oversight can lead to poor decisions and erode public confidence. The current process highlights a disconnect between the REDC, City Commission, and city staff. With no clear plan from the Public Works Director and little coordination among key players, the city risks making decisions that don't serve the community's best interests. Effective governance requires communication, planning, and a shared commitment to transparency. Summary: the proposal to loan funds for new equipment in Ranger City has exposed significant legal, financial, and procedural flaws. The lack of transparency, missing documentation, and unclear project definition all point to the need for reform. Moving forward, the City and REDCB must prioritize transparency, legal compliance, and careful financial planning to restore public trust and ensure responsible stewardship of taxpayer funds.